Right, listen up. Imagine you're lost, the temperature is dropping, and all you have is a top-of-the-range multi-function survival gadget. The battery is dead. Now picture this instead. In your other hand, you've got a simple, rusty-looking tin can from your granddad's old kit. Which one is going to save your life? It might sound mad, but I'd bet on the tin can every single time. It raises a crucial question in our modern, tech-obsessed world. Have we forgotten what true survival is all about? We are constantly sold the idea that the latest gadget, with all its bells and whistles, is the key to conquering the wild. But out there, where it really counts, simplicity is your greatest ally. The truth is, survival isn't about having the most expensive equipment, it's about your mindset, your resourcefulness, and the reliability of the tools you carry. An old tin can, like the ones issued to soldiers in the Second World War, is a masterpiece of multi-purpose design. It can be used to boil water, making it safe to drink and saving you from debilitating diseases. It can be a cooking pot, a small shovel for digging a fire pit, or even a signal mirror if you polish the lid. It requires no batteries, no software updates, and no instruction manual. It just works. This is the fundamental principle that guided the creation of wartime gear: absolute, unwavering dependability when your life is on the line. Modern survival kits often overlook this raw functionality. They are packed with items that look impressive but can be surprisingly fragile or overly complicated. A solar-powered charger is fantastic until you're stuck in a dense forest with no sunlight for days. A GPS device is a marvel of technology until it gets smashed against a rock or soaked in a river crossing. When these high-tech tools fail, they fail completely, leaving you with nothing but a piece of useless plastic. The humble tin can, however, endures. It embodies a philosophy of resilience that we need to rediscover, a belief in simple, robust tools that you can trust with your life. So, when we ask if a rusty can could be better than a modern kit, we're not just comparing two objects, we're comparing two completely different mindsets. One relies on complex technology that can be a single point of failure. The other relies on human ingenuity, powered by tools that are as tough and as versatile as the survivor using them. The soldiers of WWII understood this. They didn't have the luxury of choice. They had the necessity of survival. Their equipment was designed to be abused, repaired, and repurposed. And that is a lesson that is just as vital today, on November 28, 2025, as it was over 80 years ago. The equipment carried by a soldier in the Second World War wasn't just made, it was forged. It was born from the harshest conditions imaginable, designed with the brutal reality of the battlefield in mind. Every item from the entrenching tool to the mess kit had to be brutally effective and practically indestructible. There were no second chances. If a soldier's canteen split open or his knife blade snapped, it could mean the difference between life and death. Manufacturers knew this, and they built gear to a standard of durability that is rarely seen today. They used thick-gauge steel, solid brass, tough canvas, and real leather, materials chosen for their strength, not their lightness or aesthetic appeal. Think about the sheer punishment this gear had to endure. It was dragged through mud, submerged in salt water, frozen in the brutal cold of the Ardennes, and baked in the heat of the North African desert. It was dropped, thrown, and used for tasks it was never officially designed for. A helmet wasn't just for protection, it was a basin for washing, a bucket for carrying water, or even a makeshift cooking pot. This philosophy of multi-use durability was at the core of its design. The gear had to be simple enough to be maintained in the field with minimal tools and intuitive enough to be used effectively under the extreme stress of combat. This is why so much of this equipment is still functional today. You can pick up a WWII-era P38 can opener, a tiny piece of hinged steel, and it will open a can just as efficiently as it did in 1944. Compare that to a modern, multi-tool can opener that can sometimes feel flimsy or awkward to use. The old gear was over-engineered for a reason. It was built with a margin of error that assumed the worst-case scenario. This inherent toughness means that even after decades of neglect, these tools can often be cleaned up and put right back into service, ready for the next challenge. The men and women who used this gear became masters of improvisation. They learned to see their equipment not just for its intended purpose, but for its potential. A wool blanket could become a shelter, a rain collector, or a smoke signal. This mindset, combined with the sheer robustness of their tools, is what saw them through impossible situations. The gear didn't just support them, it empowered their will to survive. It was a reliable partner in the fight for life, a silent testament to the idea that when everything else fails, solid, dependable tools will see you through. Let's get down to brass tacks and compare some specific items, head to head. First up, the fire starter. A typical WWII soldier might have carried a simple Zippo-style lighter or a waterproof tube of matches. The Zippo, made of sturdy metal, could run on almost any flammable liquid in a pinch. Not just lighter fluid, it was simple, refillable, and could be repaired with basic skills. Today's equivalent? Often, it's a plasma lighter. It looks incredibly futuristic, creating an electric arc at the push of a button. It's windproof and impressive, but what happens when the internal lithium-ion battery runs out of charge in the middle of nowhere? It becomes a useless piece of plastic. The old Zippo, however, just needs a new flint and some fuel. Next, consider the cutting tool. The Fairbairn Sykes fighting knife or a standard-issue KA bar were legendary pieces of kit. They were made from high-carbon steel, designed with a full tang for maximum strength, meaning the blade steel runs all the way through the handle. You could use it to cut, pry, dig, and defend yourself without a second thought. Now look at many modern survival knives. They are often packed with gimmicks. A tiny compass in the pommel that rarely points true north, a hollow handle filled with a flimsy fishing kit, or a serrated edge that is impossible to sharpen in the field. These features can create weak points, and a hollow handle is far more likely to snap under pressure than a solid, full-tang design. Let's talk about shelter. The WWII soldier often had a simple canvas pup tent half or a wool blanket. This heavy-duty canvas was tough, breathable, and naturally water-resistant. If it tore, it could be easily stitched back together with a needle and thread. Today, we have ultra-lightweight sil nylon tarps and tents. They are incredibly light and packed down to nothing, which is great. But that same ultralight material can be easily ripped by a sharp branch or punctured by a stray ember from your campfire. Repairing these modern fabrics in the field is a specialized task, often requiring specific glues or patches that you might not have with you. The old canvas, while heavy, offered a level of rugged reliability that is hard to beat. Finally, the water bottle. A WWII soldier carried a metal canteen, usually aluminum or steel, with a nested cup. This simple combination was genius. You could carry your water, but crucially, you could also place the metal canteen and cup directly into a fire to boil water and make it safe. This single item covered hydration and purification. Many modern adventurers rely on plastic water bottles or hydration bladders. They are convenient, but you can't put them in a fire. If your fancy UV water purifier or filter fails, you're left with no easy way to make your water safe. The old metal canteen provided a built-in foolproof backup plan. The problem with much of our modern survival gear isn't that it's bad, it's that it's been designed in a boardroom, not forged in a crisis. The focus has shifted from ultimate reliability to marketability. Features like ultralight, smart-enabled, or aerospace-grade, polymer sound, fantastic on the packaging, but they can mask underlying weaknesses. Progress has given us convenience, but sometimes at the cost of resilience. Modern manufacturing often prioritizes reducing weight and cost, which can lead to the use of thinner materials and more complex, fragile components. A single drop onto a hard surface can be the end of a delicate piece of electronics, rendering your primary navigation or communication tool useless. This reliance on complexity is a dangerous trap. The more moving parts or electronic components a tool has, the more ways it can fail. A GPS unit is a prime example. It relies on a battery, a clear signal from multiple satellites, and its own internal software. Any one of these can fail, the battery can die, the satellite signal can be blocked by a dense canopy or deep canyon, and the software can glitch. In contrast, a map and a simple magnetic compass have no batteries to run out and no software to crash. They rely on the Earth's magnetic field and your ability to read the terrain. Skills that once learned become utterly dependable. We've also become accustomed to a level of comfort that can be a liability in a true survival scenario. Modern gear is designed to make the outdoors feel more like home. Inflatable sleeping pads are wonderfully comfortable until they get a puncture in the middle of a freezing night, leaving you with no insulation from the cold ground. Self-igniting stoves are quick and easy, but what happens when the specific fuel canister runs out or the delicate igniter mechanism breaks? The WWII seconds för en Baltabaten dodider salpasur. Schattenbaltenhalten by Sager's kit was not about comfort, it was about function. A wool blanket is never as comfortable as a down sleeping bag, but it will still keep you warm even when it's wet, a property that down loses completely. This vulnerability is the pitfall of progress. We have outsourced our survival skills to gadgets. Instead of learning to read the stars or the sun for direction, we trust a GPS. Instead of learning how to build a fire in the rain, we rely on a windproof lighter. When these gadgets fail, we are left more helpless than our predecessors ever were. They didn't have a backup plan. Their primary plan was the backup plan. Their tools were simple, their skills were sharp, and their mindset was one of relentless self-reliance. They understood that in a real emergency, the most reliable piece of technology is the human brain, supported by tools that will not let it down. So, how do we apply these lessons from the past to build a truly reliable survival kit for today? The first principle is to prioritize robustness over features. When you choose an item, ask yourself a simple question. Can I break this? Then, imagine the worst conditions possible. Freezing rain, mud, being dropped from a height, and ask again. Look for tools made from simple, strong materials like carbon steel, canvas, wool, and brass. A full tang knife will always be a better choice than one with a hollow handle. A simple stainless steel water bottle and a nested cup are more versatile than a plastic bladder system. Don't be seduced by fancy packaging or a long list of functions. The second lesson is to embrace the multi-purpose philosophy. Every item in your kit should ideally have more than one use. The WWII veterans were masters of this. Their entrenching tool was a shovel, an axe, a defensive weapon, and even a frying pan. Your modern kit should follow this logic. A high-quality poncho, for example, is not just rain gear. It's an emergency shelter, a ground sheet, a water collector, and a stretcher. A shemagh or a large cotton bandana can be a bandage, a water filter, a sunshade, and a signal flag. Choosing items with this inherent versatility means you can carry less but do more, a critical advantage when you need to stay mobile. Third, build in redundancy, but do it intelligently. Redundancy doesn't mean carrying two identical fragile GPS units, it means having different systems to achieve the same goal. For fire, for example, don't just rely on a lighter. Also carry a ferrocerium rod with a striker, and a small tin of waterproof matches. For navigation, back up your GPS with a physical map of the area and a quality compass. This belt and braces approach was second nature to soldiers. They knew that one system could always fail, so having a completely different, more basic method to fall back on was not a luxury. It was standard procedure. It's about creating layers of safety. Finally, the most important lesson from these veterans is to know your gear inside and out. Your survival kit is useless if you don't know how to use it proficiently. Before you head out, practice with every single item. Learn to sharpen your knife with a simple stone. Practice building a shelter with your tarp or poncho in your back garden. Learn to navigate with your map and compass on a local walk. The soldiers of the past drilled relentlessly until using their equipment was second nature. Your life could depend on being able to perform these tasks under immense pressure, in the dark and in the cold. Your skill is the one component that has no batteries and can never be taken away from you. In the end, the debate between old gear and new is not about rejecting progress, it's about embracing wisdom. It's about understanding that the shiny allure of modern technology can sometimes blind us to the fundamental truths of survival. The greatest asset you will ever have in a life or death situation is not in your pack, it's between your ears. Your knowledge, your resilience, and your ability to innovate under pressure are what will truly save you. The tools you carry are there to serve that mindset, and the best tools are the ones that are simple, reliable, and empower your resourcefulness rather than replacing it. We must learn to look at gear with the critical eye of a WWII quartermaster. Does this tool offer true capability, or is it just a gimmick? Is it built to endure the worst, or is it designed for a weekend of fair-weather camping? By asking these tough questions, we can start to assemble a kit that honors the legacy of those who survived against all odds. It might mean choosing a heavier, simpler wool blanket over a lighter, more fragile sleeping bag. It might mean carrying a simple steel pot instead of a complex stove system. These choices are not a step backwards. They are a step towards genuine self-reliance. I encourage you to seek out this old wisdom, talk to older generations, visit a military surplus store, or read the first-hand accounts of soldiers and explorers from the past. Hold a piece of WWII era canvas or steel in your hands and feel its substance, its honesty. There is a profound education in these objects. They teach us that survival is not about conquering nature with overwhelming technology. It is about working with it, using simple principles of physics, mechanics, and human endurance to find your way through. The fire, the shelter, the clean water, these are the timeless pillars of survival. So, the next time you pack for an adventure, take a moment to look past the latest gadgets. Think about that rusty tin can. Remember the lessons forged in the toughest environments on Earth. Build your kit, and more importantly, build your skills around the principles of simplicity, durability, and versatility. Trust in the proven, learn from the past, and be ready for whatever the wild throws at you. Because when you are out there, alone, with everything on the line, it is the enduring wisdom of survival, not the fleeting promise of technology, that will bring you home. Never give up.